We have some more disgusting news. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, is now joining everybody mocking Zohran Mamdani, the likely next mayor of New York City, purely on the basis that he is a Muslim American. Zohran Mamdani gave a very emotional speech over the weekend where he talked about how difficult it has been to be Muslim American in New York City following the September 11th attacks. And Mamdani spoke about his late aunt. He said, quote, my aunt stopped taking the subway after 9/11 because she did not feel safe in her hijab. And J.D. Vance, instead of calling for unity, instead of trying to stand in solidarity with a fellow American and the likely next mayor of the biggest city in this country, J.D. Vance tweeted, according to Zohran, the real victim of 9/11 was his auntie who got some allegedly bad looks. Now look, J.D. Vance, Mamdani is not discrediting the victims of 9/11. He's not doing that at all, but he is speaking to the trauma and the suffering of Muslim Americans, American citizens we're talking about, who apparently you do not see, which is not news to me, and it's not news to most people in this country, but it's still disgusting nonetheless, the way you're treating fellow Americans.
Conservatives are outraged over this.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Conservatives need to understand that Muslims were victims of 9/11 too. Muslims and anyone perceived as Muslim were hit in more ways than one. Some lost their lives that day, and countless others paid the price in the aftermath through hate crimes, harassment, and state violence. So Zohran Mamdani is not wrong for saying that, because Islamophobia is dangerous and it should be condemned without hesitation. You know, his own aunt couldn't even travel without being harassed. You know, that's what this country became after 9/11. And the only reason conservatives are trying to twist his word into some gotcha moment is because they fear him. They know this man has the potential to shake up American politics in a real way, and that terrifies them. They're screaming about Zohran Mamdani disrespecting 9/11, but this is the same movement that gave Donald Trump a pass when Donald Trump bragged on 9/11 about how his building was now the tallest in Manhattan. The same man who disrespected the dead by turning a national tragedy into a flex. So they can miss us with the fake outrage.
Zohran Mamdani, the anti-Jewish, Israel-hating candidate for New York City mayor, who does appear poised to win the race. The betting prediction markets have his chances of victory at 95%. This week, he did something that I think is just, it was shocking to me and really unforgivable and speaks to who he is as a human being. Mamdani invoked 9/11, didn't make one mention of the victims of 9/11 who were physically incinerated by fire because of jetliners that Islamist terrorists flew into the World Trade Center on 9/11/2001. These were jihadist terrorists who espoused the same philosophy that Mamdani has defended time and again. It's the same anti-Jewish, anti-Israel philosophy that Mamdani espouses. Flying airplanes into the World Trade Center is globalizing the Intifada. Mamdani brought up 9/11 in a scene I found really disturbing. He invoked the memory of his aunt and said she felt uncomfortable riding the subway in New York City after 9/11 because of Islamophobia. You know who couldn't ride the subway after 9/11? The nearly 3,000 victims who were incinerated in the World Trade Center because of jihadist terrorist ideology. It's not Islamophobic to call out Islamist terrorism or anti-Semitism or the desire to destroy the Jewish state, which is what Mamdani wants to do. He didn't mention the victims of 9/11 the other day. He faked crocodile tears, it seemed to me. And in his portrayal, his aunt, and by extension, other Muslims in New York City became the victims of 9/11. It's the ultimate victim reversal. It's the ultimate gaslighting. And as a Jewish person and as a journalist, I have to speak up. It's insulting to the actual victims of 9/11 and their families. My friends in New York, I urge you, think twice before pulling the lever for this man. And your Jewish friends are not going to be safe in New York if you elect this man.
Let me make this clear. If you call yourself conservative or MAGA, and you've never had a problem with going to see an immigrant doctor, say this doctor is Muslim, this doctor is from Latin America, or this doctor is an African immigrant, you've never had a problem with them taking care of you and treating you, but you have a problem with an immigrant or a black woman or somebody who is not white running in office, like Zohran Mamdani running. I've seen a lot of shitty talk in his comment section. People are like, oh, he's going to bring the Sharia law. If you have a problem with Zohran Mamdani running for office, but if Zohran Mamdani was a doctor, you would not have a problem with that? You're a fucking racist and a piece of shit, and you're the fucking reason why Trump is doing whatever he's doing to this country. This whole thing between Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo is exactly what we were going through with Trump and Kamala. A fucking open book. But bitches are out here fear fucking mongering about, oh, he's going to bring the Sharia law. How is he going to bring the Sharia law in America? Do you have brain cells or they're all fucking fried? How does Zohran Mamdani get Sharia law passed in New York City?
Once Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor of New York City, it's going to be the catalyst that causes the downfall of the U.S. government. At this point, it's pretty much undeniable that he's going to be our next mayor. He's literally torched Andrew Cuomo in every debate. This election is going to show the rest of the country that it's time for change. No matter if you agree with him or you disagree with him, can you at least pay attention to the fact that both Democrats and Republicans are coming after him? They are operating together as an establishment, which is exactly what they've always done. Democrats get elected into office so that they can stall government. Republicans get elected into office so that they can abuse power. No matter which side of the spectrum that you fall on, if you haven't picked up on this fact yet, then you truly are not accepting what our U.S. government actually is. For those of you that oppose his policies, can you at least research what his policies actually are instead of accepting the misinformation that you are being given from whatever news source you get it from? Because both liberal and conservative news stations are giving out incorrect information when it comes to his policies. Again, if you disagree with them, fact check the news sources that you are getting information from. For example, when it comes to his increase in tax on the wealthy who are making over $1 million, he wants to increase their taxes by 2%. Both liberal and conservative news stations are saying that he wants to increase their taxes by 50%. For those of you calling him a communist, aren't you the same people that actually want our tax dollars to be reinvested back into our society? Are you actually okay with how our tax dollars are spent on wars and other countries that have nothing to do with us? I mean, how many billions of dollars were just sent to Argentina? But yet, our government shut down. For those of you who are spewing Islamophobia and talking about our country or our city being taken over by a jihadist, have you not accepted the fact that in order for politicians to get elected into the U.S. government, they have to pledge allegiance to a foreign nation? That doesn't bother you? But like I said at the beginning of this video, Zohran Mamdani getting elected as mayor of New York City is going to shift the political landscape in this country, because people are starting to realize that the only thing that our government has bipartisanship on is our foreign adversary and Zohran Mamdani, or any political candidate that does not fall in line with this establishment's objectives, which are to keep us in line.
Hey, what's up, America? Zohran Mamdani, mayor of New York City. And businesses are now threatening to leave New York City if Zohran Mamdani becomes mayor. And of course, he's ahead in the polls by 23 points right now. On top of that, Zohran Mamdani apologized for attacking the New York City Police Department, calling them racist the other day. Now Zohran Mamdani is accused of ignoring 9/11 victims because he was talking about how his aunt was in fear of wearing a hijab after 9/11, not giving a fuck about the nearly 3,000 people that died when Muslim radical extremists hit the buildings with airplanes. Not a word about that. No, the big offense was his aunt was scared to wear a hijab because of possible Islamophobia. This guy is the exact problem that's going to destroy New York City. You know, I recall Hugo Chavez being elected by a youth vote down in Venezuela of a socialist that said that they would restore everything and restore everything that the empires of the past took away. And now what we're seeing today is a Venezuela ran by a socialist dictator in bed with cartels. And most people can't afford a can of fucking soup now. So if you want to see what probably is going to happen to New York City, just go take a look at what they did to Venezuela. I have a feeling what'll happen is Zohran Mamdani will win. Everybody will get all the goodies they were promised. It'll go well for about 6 months to a year. Then all of a sudden, New York City will be in the red like it's a fucking Trump parade. And you guys remember how New York City looked back in the late 1970s? Yeah, you're gonna be getting some of that. So enjoy ruined apartment buildings and staying toasty by the fire from an old oil drum that you're burning shit in.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a full-blown meltdown in New York City tonight. In fact, the man that the radical left was calling their rising star, Zohran Mamdani, the socialist darling that was groomed to be the next mayor of America's biggest city, just got busted in a scandal that's so explosive, it is sending shockwaves from Queens all the way to Capitol Hill. Now, I'm talking about a photo that never should have seen the light of day. A smiling Mamdani arm in arm with a man linked to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Yes, you heard that right, guys. Terror ties, okay? And just hours after that picture went public, Mamdani's own rally turned into chaos. Protesters shouting, anti-Semite, traitor, and get out, all chasing him off stage. In fact, this isn't just another political embarrassment. This is the collapse of the socialist fairy tale in real time. Because under President Trump's America First leadership, the people are not afraid anymore. They're standing up and they're fighting back. Drop a standing up in the comments down below if you're standing up too. Now, tonight, we're going to go ahead and pull back the curtain on everything that the media refuses to tell you about. Zohran Mamdani, the photo, the protests, and of course the radical record that has finally come back to haunt him. We're going to lay all of his dirty laundry out on the table today. Stay tuned. This one's getting wild. Hit the like button and subscribe. Okay, folks, this is not just another rumor or some kind of speculation. This is real. A smiling Zohran Mamdani arm in arm with Iman Suraj Waha, the same man identified by federal prosecutors as an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Okay, now picture this. This image dropped like a bombshell across social media, and the outrage, it was instant. New Yorkers who still remember the smoke, drop a comment down below. Let me know where you're watching from. Where are my New Yorkers at, okay? New Yorkers who still remember the smoke, the sirens, and the heartbreak of terrorism on U.S. soil saw a man running for mayor, grinning side by side, someone who's tied to the attack that killed innocent Americans. Now, to them, it wasn't just tone deaf, it was betrayal. Now, imagine being a firefighter's widow from 1993 or even 2001 and seeing that particular picture resurface. It pretty much told people exactly who Mamdani keeps close and what kind of unity he actually believes in. And in an America rebuilding pride and strength under President Trump, that photo didn't just spark anger. It reignited the city's instinct to fight back against weakness and radicalism hiding in plain sight. Hours after this photo goes viral, Mamdani stepped onto a Queens stage to defend New York Attorney General Letitia James. Oh, and it went south real fast. Within minutes, a crowd erupted. One protester shouted, "Anti-Semite." Another one screamed, "You'll go to jail with Tish." Cell phones came out, cameras started rolling, and chaos broke loose really quickly, guys. Eyewitnesses said Mamdani's smile vanished, his security detail tightened, and within seconds, the so-called champion of the people was hustled toward the exit as chants of traitor followed him down the street. No spin, no context, just pure rejection, live and raw. Now, here's the real symbolism, okay? In Trump's America First era, citizens aren't quietly sitting while far-left ideologues lecture them about tolerance. No, that ain't happening anymore. In fact, they're pushing back loud and unapologetically. That rally was supposed to showcase solidarity, but instead it became a snapshot of what happens when everyday Americans decide that they've had enough of being lied to, mocked, and governed by radicals who despise the very country that made them possible.
You're not going to believe what Mamdani said about 9/11.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Yeah, okay, so when it comes to Mamdani, the real victims of 9/11 weren't the nearly 3,000 people that were killed by terrorists, but his aunt, who was afraid to wear a hijab in the subway. And when you understand what is actually going on here, Mamdani and all those people behind him, he would rather have a conversation about people's a fear of Muslims, or people's the fact that they're uncomfortable with Muslims around, which they like to call Islamophobia, but I think that's made up leftist terminology. Like, me feeling uncomfortable around some of these people is not based on fear, it's actually based on reality. And this is the conversation that he thinks is appropriate to have to become mayor of the most important city in the United States. This is who these people are. This is what they're speaking to. And New Yorkers, if you elect this man, who's behind him in that photo, that is who is going to prioritize.
House Republicans just dropped a political bombshell. They want to strip New York City mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani of his U.S. citizenship and possibly deport him. According to new reports, 2 GOP lawmakers, Representative Andy Ogles from Tennessee and Randy Fine from Florida, have asked the Justice Department to investigate whether Mamdani lied on his naturalization forms when he became a U.S. citizen in 2018. They claim he failed to disclose ties to far-left political groups, including the Democratic Socialists of America, which they argue could fall under the federal definition of a communist organization. If their claims are proven true, it could lead to the unprecedented step of denaturalization, effectively revoking his citizenship. Congressman Ogles didn't hold back, calling Mamdani a radical socialist who shouldn't even be allowed to run for office, while Fine urged the Justice Department to review every naturalization of the last 30 years, starting with Mamdani himself. Mamdani, who currently leads polling for New York City's 2025 mayoral race, hasn't directly commented on the investigation, but his campaign insists the attacks are politically motivated. His supporters call the probe a smear tactic, designed to derail a progressive candidate gaining traction in one of America's most influential cities. Legal experts note that denaturalizing a U.S. citizen is extremely rare. It requires hard evidence of fraud or deliberate omission, but the optics alone are explosive. If the case moves forward, it could reshape New York's political landscape and reignite national debate over who gets to call America home. This isn't just another campaign controversy. It's a federal storm brewing over citizenship, power, and politics in the most watched mayoral race in the country.
26 billionaires got together and poured over $22 million into trying to stop Zohran Mamdani, a mayoral position. And the crazy thing is, it's not going to work. We're 2 days into early voting and we can see the turnout numbers for the boroughs in New York. It's pretty simple math. The boroughs where Mamdani is the strongest have the highest turnout rates, and the turnout is fucking mind-blowing. Way surpassing what Eric Adams achieved when he won the mayoral position, and at the time, the Democratic Party glazed his shit non-stop. They were literally saying he could be president. And in the boroughs where Cuomo is projected to do the best, turnout is down because he ran a campaign that he said himself was based on fear and opposition. And if you want to increase turnout, that's not a good strategy across the board. He just had a rally that looks like a presidential campaign rally. Like, it's thousands of people who showed up to hang out with this guy. Very clear where the enthusiasm lies. These billionaire Trump allies can keep lighting money on fire. It's just a fact that Mamdani supporters are going to vote early and they're going to vote on E-Day. And there will be more of them. And then these billionaires are going to turn their attention to colluding with Trump to stop Zohran Mamdani while he's in office, because the wealthy are the primary anti-democratic force in this country. Which is why we have to focus on putting belt to ass against billionaires and their corporate-sponsored politicians everywhere we go. Every tool the rich use to preserve the unequal status quo, and this includes the Democratic Party itself, it all has to be dismantled if we want this country to survive.
Right-wingers at the Portland ICE facility are truly out of control. Last night, they were caught on camera committing multiple illegal actions. For example, they stole the personal property of protesters at the facility.
Handing out boxes of respirators.
Are you pushing a woman?
Yep, I am.
You can give it back.
Nope.
You just stole that from me.
He goes later. They blocked and grabbed a woman who was trying to leave an encounter where she was surrounded by a bunch of MAGA supporters.
Why are you touching them? Leave her alone! Why are you grabbing her? She is trying to get away from you! Leave her alone!
And they also tried to tear down the encampment by the facility, even with Portland police right next to them.
Hey, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
It seems the right-wingers are trying to justify this by saying that the encampment is illegal, but that's not how the law works. Just because the city says that the encampment is not allowed doesn't mean that the right-wingers are allowed to steal people's property and try to tear down somebody's shelter.
All right, check it out. This 30-second video of Zohran Mamdani has racked up 33 million views on Twitter over the past few days, and it's because Trump supporters are making fun of him, calling for Zohran to be deported because he's telling a personal story about his aunt in this clip. I want to break this down because the MAGA reaction coming from JD Vance, coming from the top MAGA figures, has been so vile. They're essentially just telling Zohran to get out of the country because Zohran told a story of his family in the post 9/11 era. I talk about this a lot, but my dad is Muslim. He was born in America. My grandpa is Muslim, and he was born in Syria. I have a lot of family that's Muslim and that moved in the late 80s and early 90s to the United States and built businesses. They're heart doctors, they're surgeons, people who are contributing to make this country better, as the vast majority of immigrants do. The point is, my family also has stories from the early 2000s being racially profiled after 9/11. It's something that happened. A lot of Muslims in America went through some experiences that were not good after 9/11. Now, that is not to undermine how bad 9/11 was. Of course, it was a terrible terrorist attack, the largest terrorist attack in American history. But two of these things can exist at the same time. Number one, 9/11 was, of course, awful. Number two, not every Muslim deserves to get profiled for that. So, Zohran Mamdani tries to make this very simple point during a press conference in the Bronx just a few days back. And he makes this point because the person he's running against, Andrew Cuomo, said something racist himself. Cuomo, talking to a conservative radio host named Sid Rosenberg a few mornings back, Cuomo says, quote, "God forbid, another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?" says Andrew Cuomo. "He'd be cheering," says Sid Rosenberg. Cuomo paused and chuckled before saying, "That's another problem." This is just straight up xenophobia, racism, Islamophobia. The label doesn't matter. This is obviously the vile racial profiling of somebody who is Muslim. So Zohran Mamdani then does a press conference, and this 30-second clip has gone so viral that JD Vance has responded to it. A bunch of top conservatives have responded to it. It has 33.1 million views. And this is what he says in the clip.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
That's literally the clip. I'm not even joking. That clip has conservatives so mad that they are trying to concoct a plan to deport Zohran Mamdani. And let me explain why they're so mad. Let's just start with JD Vance. He basically summarizes a conservative position, says, according to Zohran, the real victim of 9/11 was his auntie who got some allegedly bad looks. Okay, this is so infuriating for a few reasons. Zohran is never claiming that his aunt was the real victim of 9/11. In fact, Zohran's intention, I'm not speaking for him here, but we can reasonably assume